Sorry, Ali, I just
No, go
wanted to
ahead.
jump in and say real quick. I mean, if we really think about it we're all here in America, right? We were all born and raised here. They have influenced what, 99% of what we call entertainment, the information that we take on, that we take in via the television and or radio. And the internet's a little bit of a different beast, but definitely through television, um, books, most of them, what we're given through the educational system, much of what we believe is shaped by what they what they wanted us to believe in.
Yep.
And
Because yeah, go
that
ahead.
they intentionally, because when I say they, I'm not including people like you, unless you secretly got like a couple billion and you're really like controlling TV companies and stuff,
I
Ali.
wish. I'm just kidding. I don't want to control it. I'll take a couple billion. No, but go ahead. I know you're not talking about it. It's all good.
Yeah, I like to just put that out there so anybody who is listening who might be, Ashkenazi, and we're not talking about the average Ashkenazi kid who's a teacher at some elementary school. We're not talking about you.
Mhm.
We're talking about the power people who really make a lot of this stuff going, all the way back to Theodore Herzl, who was like one of the main leaders of Zionism. We're talking about to people like the Rothschilds, and I would even add Rockefellers because they're married into the family. People like the Vanderbilts. When you start going back into some of this older money or the Weinsteins and some of this, yes, you could say the same about Jesuits exactly, because the
Mhm.
Jesuits, all of this, all is Zionism tied in with Illuminati, tied in with Masonic activities,
Mhm.
tied into the Roman Catholic Church. All
Mhm.
this stuff is all working together, hand in glove, for all similar. Like I said before, like they're not all on the for the same endpoint, but right now that it all works in the meantime for them to get to a similar goal.
Mhm. And that's why like I think it's very easy to be like, it's just, it's that group, it's that group, it's that group.
Hmm.
And also because the information itself, when you do kind of go down one rabbit hole, it's very segmented for a reason. Because once you start to put all the pieces together, like, oh, the Masonic, or like, the Jesuits, Zionists, it's all kind of, it's like, okay, you can see there's different motivations, different
Yeah,
groups, all powerful groups.
yeah.
It's
You start going
you
into
know they
the
want you to. They
Ooh,
also want you to not pay attention. That doesn't matter which hole you start in. You when you hit like somewhat of the rock, not the rock, but when you hit deep enough, it all runs into kind of like the same thing.
yep.
And
hmm
everyone comes to the same conclusion, right? More or less, regardless of where you start. Where you end is where you end. And
yeah,
when you start saying, well, I've read all this, I've listened to this, I've, gone down this hole, I've taken in all this information, I've used text, historical, religious, etc., etc. When you start looking at certain people based on bloodlines, it's it gets hard to you become the asshole for speaking on it, right?
Yeah.
yep.
Why'd you have to
and
go there?
and I
Yeah.
would say not even all the Rothschilds. For instance, I have like two Rothschilds who follow me. They're not even they're not included all the way up to everything their family's involved with. I guarantee you they don't even have a clue about a lot of this stuff. Now, one of them I believe might have a degree about some of the stuff, but one
Probably.
of them I know she definitely the way I hear her talk and the stuff I see she's involved with, I highly doubt she would be, very involved. But I say we got to always look at the families, the family, any family that you can trace back for centuries that has been in power for a long time. Those are the people you need to be looking at. And so
Hmm.
like the Lee family, for instance.
Mm.
Yeah, we're watching you now. I'm just playing. But the Lee family out of they have the East Asia Banking Company, which they're
Hmm.
basically the same as like the IMF on this side of the world. You
Hmm.
also have people like the Saud families. Yes, Rothschilds bankrolled Rome too. Rothschilds not only bankrolled Rome, UK, Zurich, Paris. What they did was Nathan Amschel. which eventually changed his name to Rothschild, the father. He sent his 6 sons to 6 different locations, and it got to the point where because a lot of people don't realize this. Wars back then, you had to carry all your gold and all that stuff like that, gold and diamonds. And what would happen is people would rob you. And so, in order for it to get safer for them to get all their golds and their jewels and precious, metals to all these different places, they set up these banks, and they said, "Okay, we'll give you, we will hold this here in the bank, and then when you get to France, then you can get it out from my brother for a fee."
Yes, that's right. That's kind of how they made it. Oh yeah, because Rome bankrolled that. That's what I've been learning lately. Because I used to think that it was like, oh, the Rothschilds, but a lot of it was Rome bankrolling the Rothschilds as well, because they Rothschild managed all the money, like you were just saying.
It's actually the other way around. The reason why is because the Rothschilds made a lot of their money before the Roman Empire starts stealing a lot of their wealth, and so they had their money separately. The Roman Empire blew through money like crazy in the wars, and so Rome itself had a nug, but all the other places throughout the Roman Empire, going all the way from, say, England all the way over to the borders of Russia back then, didn't have their wealth. So all of them were getting money from the Roman Empire. The banks came in to supplement that, and first, the Rothschilds were big on gold.
Right.
And so once they got into gold and other stuff, the banking is where they made tons and tons of money off of the royal families through usury. And so through charging them taxes on that, that's how they kept their wealth. The difference is Rome was spending money like it was water.
Well, because that's like the rabbit hole that essentially with like the Jesuits and Rome. Where I'm at right now, I need to, because here, like, this is what Sebs and I have been talking about. I don't mean but like they didn't come before Rome because with Babylon. So it's like that's where I'm still.
But we got to remember, there's 3 Roman empires, and each of the Roman empires collapsed for the same reason, for overextending themselves and blowing through money. And so it got to the point where literally the popes started borrowing from the Rothschilds.
I'm gonna have to look into this.
That's how they got it. Like, for instance, there's a quote by Nathan Rothschild where he said, "I care not which puppet which sits on the royal throne. I only care about who controls the money, and I control the money."
Right. And so I guess I took that as like, okay, they're still a part of all of this. But I saw it as more of like they were just facilitating the transactions and then making money off of that. But then you talk about 3 Roman empires, and then like randomly the Crusades just popped into my head. So now I've got that's where I'm at, and like trying
because you had the ancient Roman Empire that they took over the Levant and all kind of other areas in the Mediterranean, and then eventually once they started to collapse, then you had the Dark Ages come in for a good 1,000 years. And then you had the revised Roman Empire start raising back up. And then as the Roman Empire started to fall apart, then you started to have the separate states of England and France and Germany, and all these places came up. And they were still under rulership of the Roman Empire.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the only reason why I would say that they collapsed is because it went from Caesars controlling different provinces to just the church, and they were only tied together by Catholicism.
Okay. Well, you'll come back and we'll talk about that more, because that's something.
It gets deep when you get into that. It's
you just reminded me, Marcus. I said you just reminded me. I used to be an altar boy. Go figure. The child of the devil.
You're playing with the little sensor and shit.
Yo. long time ago. Look, I was looking for my birth certificate the other day, right? And going through some paperwork, and I found my first communion. What's the other one? Confirmation.
Confirmation.
Baptism, all that, and it was just And I realized I went through that whole system, but it didn't have much of an effect on me in terms of religion. If anything, it helped me like get away from it as opposed to, become more interested in it. The
Catholicism
contradictions
leads
were,
most people to atheism.
I was gonna say most people I know that grew up in the Catholic Church, they're not.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really does.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, I went through what, sixth grade through 12? Yeah. And by the time I finished, it was like, I mean, the good thing is that, like in high school, they only made you take like one semester of a religion class, and after that, it's all normal. It's all normal shit, right? You don't have to take anything related to religion, and even yeah.
It looks like a lot of people have the similar stories. Anthony says, I stopped first communion. She says, I dropped out of communion. You got all very similar stories. I see.
And I dropped out of I dropped out of Hebrew school at very young. I was like, I wasn't getting up on it. It's a little bit of a side note, which I was Hebrew. I don't even feel right saying that anymore. But yeah, my dad gave up on me quite early in that, so I never even got
kicked out.
It was super. It was really boring, and people always ask, like, yo, you got any stories? Did priests do anything? Look, they knew who my father was. We had no issues, my brother and I.
They asked you the wrong question.
We were.
They should have said any stories with the sisters.
Oh. With that being said, I don't know what they was doing over there in the all-girls school around the way. That's something totally different.
Different. I had some friends that went to all-girl Catholic school. They were always, when I would visit them, they were always the ones.
They're the wildest.
Yep.
They are the wildest.
They
we could do a whole show on that. Lord.
Bring some of my old friends on. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, looks like you got something good for us.
Yes.
What do you got for us?
Yes.
Well, I was in Psalms 83 and I was referencing the Israeli video. But if anybody's memory goes back and remembers what he was saying about how America was primarily responsible for trying to emigrate people over to Israel and try to wipe out the identity of the actual Israelites of the Bible.
Yes.
So here is Psalms chapter 83, verses 1 through 6.
Actually, probably 1 through 8.
Sure. Okay. So, and it reads thus and so. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo,
hold was real quick first. For those who don't know, Psalms literally means like songs. This was like a song, and this was like a prayer that he's literally praying to God for this to happen. So go on and continue.
For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
I'll explain that. So a tumult, like they're like having a gathering, and they're all like kind of talking about like what they should do, like get together. So continue.
Mm-hmm.
And they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assur also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot. Salah.
So what that's letting you know is all the people who were involved in the confederacy of cutting Israel off from being a nation. So.
Also, I wanted to throw in there Deuteronomy 28 and verse 37. part of the curses for Israel departing from the law. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee.
Oh, read the next one too.
Thou shalt carry much seed out into the
sorry.
field.
That's not the one I wanted.
Hmm.
Let me skip to Deuteronomy 28 real quick. I'm trying to think which one I want you to read. What is it? 46? Yeah, read Deuteronomy 28 and 46.
And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
And so what this is saying is all these curses. And so for those who don't know what we're talking about, Deuteronomy is literally when it's Moses basically reciting to them like, okay, these first 15 verses talk about all the things that if you follow the law, statutes, and commandments, which the Father gives you, I will bless you. I'll do all these good things. If you don't do it, the other what is it, 15 through 68, all of that is coming. So all of these negative things are going to happen if you don't. And so it even references like nations that will come from afar, which you don't understand their tongue, that will, basically sell you into slavery, your children into slavery, and in detail.
Goes exactly. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
If the 13th Amendment covers, if it explains how slavery is still legal, right, and still allowed under the Constitution, Deuteronomy fully explains who is who and what is what. And you can, once you read through it, right, and you see specifically the curses, it becomes more and more clear that it's not referencing everyone.
Well, and it also becomes more and more clear that the people in Israel do not fit most of these curses. I mean, if any.
So I wanted to expand a little bit on Deuteronomy 28 and 36 on the astonishment, a proverb, and byword. So taking into account the Spanish conquest of 1492, several nations had their identities ripped away and hidden from them. For example, Puerto Rico's original name, Borinquen. Puerto Rico stands for rich ports, a name given to it by the Spanish. The Taino name for Cuba was called Cubanascan. Nicaragua's original name came from a Indian chief named Nicarao. Just Nica and agua, water. And that became the Spanish name for it. And referencing Psalms 83, when it says that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, that's another way of keeping one's true identity hidden from whoever's being conquered.
And while you're at it, read by the way, hey Lainey, but going ahead and read Deuteronomy 28 and 48.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord God shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee.
And so the reason why I want him to read that one, because that references whoever the Israelites are, if they are not following the commandments, and these curses are going to be upon them. So that means that they are literally going to have to go to their enemies for want of everything. So you need clothes. You're more than likely not going to own the places you buy clothes from. You're not going to own the places you would get water from. You're not going to own, you need a driver's license. You need a death certificate, a marriage certificate, education, everything. You're going to have to get it from the other nations. You're not going to be able to do that on your own. And so if you're not going through those curses, the people in the land, if they're not going through those curses, then then either the Bible would be wrong, or I mean, you get what I'm saying? Something has to give, because
Yeah.
if they're over there in the land and plenty of them are atheists, they're not, they're not following Torah, they're not kosher, they're not doing any of these things, then these curses will automatically fall upon them.
Pretty much, that's what it sounds like.
And so what you have to do is you have to look at, okay, well, who are those curses falling on as a people?
Right.
And so that's the next logical step. If it's not the people in Israel, who are the people who these curses are landing upon?
Going by this logic, it would be the probably original people of Israel who were then sent out. Yeah, I mean, that's what, and there's something before I forget really quick. There was a mention of iron. Does that have any significance at all to a certain group of people, or is it just because of the time
Talking about the yoke of iron put on your neck?
Yes, that.
Well, and that's something that should be significant. There have been slaveries, many different groups of people went through slavery, but slavery literally, where there are yokes of iron on your neck, that is very specific. Another one where it talks about your children will be given away and you'll have no power in your hand to do anything about it. When it talks about that your wife, another man will lay with your wife. When it talks about you building a house that you won't dwell in. When it talks about you gathering the grapes which you won't eat. When it talks about another nation coming in and gobbling up the fruits of your land. All of those things, you would have to be hitting curse after curse after curse after curse. And yes, fire up that Logos Bible software. But all of these curses would have to be, and so it's not just, well, we went through slavery. Well, okay, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And it has to, and what you start seeing is, it even talks about how you will have fatherless households.
I
mean, it goes detail, and it's not only curses here in Deuteronomy 28. I mean, remember they had the whole thing talking about Jada Pinkett and the whole alopecia. It even talks about the daughters of Zion would have be cursed with having baldness in their hair.
Oh shit.
Yes. So and what I teach and what we teach, I guess the One West School of Doctrine is that typically, and I'm not saying every single person who fits under this is, and every person who's not under this isn't, but the prototypical would be most people who would fall up under, we'll say African American, Latino, and Native American fall up under all these curses as a whole. Like I told you, Israel is dispersed in many nations, so there are going to be people in every single nation, whether it's Japan, Malaysia, Ireland, wherever, that are going to be remnants of Israel everywhere. And so what you have to do, if you don't know that lineage and be able to trace back to saying, well, I think my parentage comes from there, then you have to start trying to look into these curses and try to figure, okay, is any of this stuff really hitting and sitting with my spirit? Because that's what I always tell Fuzz this all the time. Try the spirit by the spirit. And so as you study it and you try to get a grasp and understand how much of this is fitting with me. And then even if it's not hitting with you, that's not the end of the world. It makes a difference on how you are treating the children of Israel, because what it says is, if you bless Israel, you will be blessed. If you curse Israel, you will be cursed. Right, Fuzz?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. I figure you probably had a precept already.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Because I'm listening after.
Oh no, not yet. But sorry, go ahead. I don't want to take over the show.
Oh please, no. I mean, that's why, like, a lot of this I'm just like listening, because I'm trying to tie it in with like lots of things I've been learning lately / just have seen over there. I mean, it logically, as far as even just what we've seen, really anywhere, it makes sense to me. I'm not saying like as far as if it's defining like the end point for someone or like someone's destiny, I don't know, but that's not, everyone's belief is different, but otherwise that makes sense to me. I mean, as far as like the curses and like what has happened. And I see the people, I think where it resonates is that the people running the show, I wonder, they know about this too. I'm not saying all of them, but there is
without a doubt in my mind, the people at the very top know all this stuff, and they work very hard to make sure that the rest of us don't know this.
Right.
And I don't mean just the Israelites. They literally make sure every nation doesn't know who the hell they are. There's only a handful of nations that can be like, okay, well, yes, we trace back to Ishmael, so we know we're Ishmaelites. We trace back to Elam, so we know we're Elamites. We trace back to Cush, so we know we're Cushites. But if you start trying to figure out, okay, well, if the Israelites aren't the people in Israel, then who are the Israelites? They keep that murky. If you try to figure out, well, who is let's see, what's another one, Fuzz? Ammon. Who are the Ammonites? Who are the Moabites? Who are the Jebusites? They don't. Who are the Perizzites? Who are the Canaanites? None of this stuff. They want you to really know who's who.
No, I feel like they want you to be like, oh, that's old Bible stuff. That's
if you
old
start
stuff.
understanding who's who, then you can start understanding the keys to the Bible. And that's why churches don't teach any of this stuff. That's the reason why prophecy gets so hard to understand and discern also. Because if you don't know who's who on anything, then you can't say what's going to happen on who or what's supposed, because there's prophecies in this book that were, for instance, it foretells in Daniel's time about Alexander the Great rising. It literally talks about the statue of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream about this statue, and the statue has a gold head and it has a chest of silver and it has legs of bronze. Well, it says bronze in there, but it's actually proper. It would actually be copper, because this was before the Bronze Era, so it was actually copper instead of bronze. So a lot of times when it's saying bronze in there, it actually should be copper. And then legs of iron. Well, Daniel, how he and pretty much most theologians will agree with this basic interpretation. The head of gold was Nebuchadnezzar's empire, the Babylonian Empire. The chest of silver, that's the Medo-Persian Empire. The legs of bronze or copper, that is the Greek Empire. The legs of iron are the Roman Empire, and the 10 toes, and it's like, yes, it says the feet of clay, yes, the 10 toes, and it talks about how a miry clay that breaks into the empires which came out of the Roman Empire.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And
so then that's where you get, I'll say UK, because when you break it into the 10, yes, UK, Ireland, Scotland, yes, those are 3 different countries. But according to this prophecy, they all break down into one. Like Spain and Portugal, that's another one. France, that's another one. Like instead of like the Netherlands and Switzerland and all these other countries, they all break out of Germany. So when you actually go back and look at it, they all fit into 10, nations. And it talks about how one will be partly strong and one partly weak. Just like how you see across NATO, some of the NATO countries are strong, some of them are weak.
Yeah.
And so that also ties into Revelations, when it starts talking about the dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads are the 7 continents.
Okay.
That beast system is over and controlling and pushing around. The 10.
Do I get that?
Oof.
Yeah, go on ahead and pull it up.
That's why they make it so that people don't ever read this part and whatever.
That's why people are like, what is this talking about?
This is crazy.
When I started seeing stuff, I was like, well, wait a minute. That makes sense. And the more studied you are on history, the more you're able to see it. Like it talks about a part where a third of a fleet was gone. Well, if you know in history that the Spaniards actually lost a third of their fleet because they were trying to take too much gold out of the Americas. That prophecy's in Revelations, because a lot of people think, well, all of a sudden at the end, just all this stuff is going to start at 1 and go from there. No, we're already in the middle of Revelations. But most Christians think we still got to start at 1. No, we're already deep in the middle of a lot of things.
Interesting. Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
so
Go ahead.
Real quick, Marcus, Dubster Brian keeps asking you, who are the black people who sold black slaves to white people?
Who sold black people to white people? Those would be mostly Hamitic people.
Hamites.
Yes.
Okay.
So just like, for instance, like I said, every person who everybody's going to be mixed around to some degree, but most of the so-called black races came out of Ham. The Israelites, they're not. But and even when you read Paul, it tells you that there's a difference between the Israelite and the Egyptian. The reason why is because an Israelite, though they might look similar to that Egyptian, and that goes into the captivity, which they were there for. Part of it was captivity, part of it that they were being treated bad in the land, so that equals up to that 400 years. But that's what that goes into, the time period before Exodus. And so if you send like 4,000 people into a nation of a couple of million, you would start taking up the phenotypes of some of the people in there if you start getting that mixing. So at a certain point, you couldn't just look at an Israelite and an Egyptian and necessarily tell the difference. But according to how it's set, there was a difference between Hamitic and Shemitic.
Okay.
And so that's the reason why it talks about when they went across to West Africa. And I have videos where there are Africans who were like, yeah, they were different than us, and we sold them because of that. That's why
they were beefing just like everything else. They were beefing where they were, or just like how we see here in the United States with the different nations. They were going to war with each other. They were at war with each other before, the Europeans pulled up on them. So
and to add in, there was Shemitic on Shemitic violence also, because the northern kingdom of Israel started beefing with the southern kingdom of Israel. So you had the 10 tribes up here, the 2 tribes down there, with the Levitical priesthood throughout all the tribes. But the north and south, they literally started their own kingdoms. The southern kingdom would sometimes team up with Edom, and the northern kingdom would team up with Moab to fight their own brothers. And so there was fighting within Shemites also. But yes, there's a difference between, Hamitic and Shemitic people.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a purity test for Dubster.
Well, the way the Bible goes, because it's not like, okay, well, you're 90% this, or like how a DNA test would break down. What is it? Oh, and Fuzz, get that also. What is it? Numbers? Was it Numbers 18? I think. When it talks about the house of their fathers.
Mm-hmm. Wait, that should be Numbers 1 for the first census.
Oh, well, thanks. I stand corrected. But it says, like, that's why I was saying before, if you can't tell the houses of your fathers, then you should go by trying the spirit by the spirit. That's why I don't staring at phenotypes.
Okay. Some of Ed's comments are funny as hell.
Yeah.
I just have like.
That's why I just let him go.
I had to learn to get used to it. He's a character.
I'm just like looking past. He's like, yo, what about ancestry? Don't do it.
I'm sorry, because I seriously totally terrible at responding. And it's like, yeah, ancestry, don't do it.
That one got me. I can't even.
I'm glad I can't look at the chat to be distracted.
I'll tell you another thing about the DNA companies, which has to be kept in mind. There is a bias by where you're from, intentional and unintentional. The fact of the way colonizers used to move slaves around so much, it can be hard to be able to track exactly, where people are coming from and how far back a person came from which place. Gets even more confusing, as most Europeans can kind of trace a lot of their genetic coding back to specific places. And so since it doesn't move around nearly as much, it's a little easier to figure out. Like if a person's like, oh, I know I'm Irish and my father's Irish and my mom is Italian, for the most part, you're going to find that and maybe a couple of surrounding other places, but you'll find that the typical Black American might have like, you know, so many different mixes within the different, you know, diaspora of African nations, because as we all get over here, no telling. And then it also, this is also that this has to be put in.
This has to be put in.
After a lot of the Hamitic tribes start selling, you know, Shemitic tribes into slavery, those Spaniards and Portuguese a lot of times came back and got them after all the Shemitic ones were. So you're gonna have some Hamitic mixes over here too.
That's what you get.
It's like, damn.
I mean, look, I gotta keep it real, right?
No,
Like you did. Look, you talk about karma, right? That's instant karma. Like, just imagine them at the ports, like, you dirty niggas. Yeah, go ahead, get them out of here. And then, like, 6 months later, you getting bopped upside the head and put on a boat. Like, look.
Wait, it reminds me of Sebs and I were talking about just like learning about with Eritrea and the history of Italian Jews there and how they were like, oh, it's cool there, and then, you know, well, then it, you know, came knocking at their door. Just as far as like the treatment of people in Eritrea, as far as Mussolini, and they were just like the Jews there were like, I'm saying, I feel like I can't even say the word Jew anymore specifically with the type of Judaism I'm talking about, because I see it as stolen, but I do.
Well, I specialize in you know, say Ashkenazi Jewish to try to differentiate.
Yeah.
And I normally always say Jewish, you know, and because everybody knows Ashkenazi Jewish, that's what they say. So I keep with that terminology. And then so it's the difference between what I'm saying, Jews and Jewish.
Hey, Fuzz, someone in the chat is asking for Galatians 3:28.
Thank you so
sure,
much.
of course.
Calamity.
I got you.
Because it doesn't show up all the time. Go ahead.
Culture said the chat is decimated.
Well, let it be. Then.
It's not even that bad. Like,
Yeah,
it's straight.
Galatians 3:8.
3:28.
3:28.
No, oh, wait a minute. You were already grabbing something else, right?
Yeah, I was in Numbers.
The house of their fathers.
All right, so I go to that then?
Yep.
All right. This is Book of Numbers, chapter 1 and verse
18.
1. Wait. What?
No, go ahead. Sorry, I want to interrupt.
Okay, chapter 1 and verse 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upwards, by their polls.
Yes. So that's how the Israelites determine their lineage, by your father. Because a lot of people don't realize within even Christ, within his genealogy, Ruth is in there. Ruth is not an Israelite. Ruth is a Moabite.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Even when you go to King David married, and it's kind of a messed up story when you go into it, but he took Bathsheba from basically, why am I forgetting his name? He was a Hittite, I believe. Well, I can't remember his name at the moment, but what he did was he got the guy drunk, and you know, he brought him to go hang out with him, got him drunk, and then before the battle, he sent him to the heaviest part of the fighting. So he was going into battle and got drunk.
Oh.
And
shit.
so it resulted in him dying, being
Right.
murdered, being killed in combat so that he could take his wife.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's a little fucked up. Jesus.
That's why it says that David was perfect in the sight of God, except for his sin, his iniquities with Bathsheba.
I feel like I came across this a little bit yesterday too. I don't know.
That's also why his son got killed.
Okay. I don't want to interrupt you, Fuzz, if you were about to keep reading, because otherwise I did have this.
No, I think that was the
No,
end of
that's
it.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to keep it, just because I realized, I could talk forever about this, but I wanted to ask specifically about the Edomites. That was the rabbit hole I essentially found. Like, and I understand that that's not.
Yeah, that can be a touchy subject for a lot of people.
Well,
but no, I mean, I have no problem answering any question because that's what we're called to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I understand it might be uncomfortable, even if it's, I don't know. It's interesting to me to learn about all of this. So like the Edomites and the Hittites, and like how does that tie in with? I'm going way off. Like Hitler, is there any kind of?
I know what you're saying.
Hitler
did get his name from he changed his name because of the Hittites.
Oh Lord. Okay, go ahead. I'll let you.
So there is a tie there. So for Fuzz, go to Genesis 25 and 25, or you probably can go up a little bit more before that.
Wasn't it 36? If you want the genealogy of Edom.
No. Jacob and Esau's birth.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's just made me laugh. It's like, sounds good. I mean, realize my father's side of the family is Ashkenazi Jewish. So. Yeah, sure, bring him on it.
Or I guess you can go start with 21.
Okay.
25 and 21.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 25 and verse 21. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife, because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him. And Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manners of people shall be separated from thy bowels.
And so it's letting you know, So it's letting you know right there that the 2 sons that she had, even though they're twins, they will start 2 separate nations, and they will be different. And so, go ahead and continue. It'll explain more.
And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manners of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau.
Which Esau means red. And the reason why I wanted to read that is because you want to know what's significant about this. In the Bible, this is the only time that a baby's description is given at its birth. No other time in the Bible, not even Christ, it tells you what he looked like as a baby.
My earliest days in the truth, that was something that stuck out to me like a big
literally red flag. Out of 80 books in the Bible, out of all the different babies, it only names this one baby, that this baby was red all over. Now, some people will try to say, it says hairy, so that's his hair. No, it's saying he was red all over. And so it's denoting that obviously, since this kid was red all over, he looked different than his brother Jacob.
I see.
Something else that should be included is verse 30. And Esau said to Jacob, Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. So red pottage, meaning like that's going to be something that looks like him that he's asking for.
Yeah, it's like a reddish color. Now, some people will say that, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but some people say because the meat was uncooked, so it had a pinkish red color. But also, so that I do not stand by because I haven't been able to confirm that. But because of that reddish skin that he looks like, and he was really hairy also. Because later on, they say that he's very hairy, even as he's older. So he's red all over like a hairy garment. And then the first verse where it talks about what kind of the only time it ever names red at all, because one thing which a lot of people don't realize in Hebrew, there's only one word for red. Oh. So you have to determine kind of what it is by the context of the way it's saying it, or something else that it's saying around it, to determine what color red that is. Right. Whether that's like red like Fuzz's scarf, whether that's like red like a tomato, whether that's like a red like a wine, you have to kind of normally read, and it'll describe what color red it's talking about.
I have many thoughts in my head, so I just want you to. I'm curious, like what? Because there's things in my head. I'm like, oh shit, that's probably not great.
Well, I go to what is it, Exodus. And the first time it names another red, and it says red like ram skin rug. And so when they used to dye the tabernacles, they would literally take a ram skin and dye it red with blood. The blood of the cochineal worms. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but they're these worms that grow on trees, and you literally like smash them up, and you can mix water and turn them different colors. What is it, Fuzz? What is this? Exodus? Trying to remember. Was it Exodus 20? Trying to remember. Exodus 28, I think. Exodus 28:3, or I might be getting it back.
Fuzz earning his check.
I put him to work. Trust me on the show.
Yeah, Fuzz earning his check today.
There's so many.
Google search red hairy man.
Well, is that what is it speaking? Well, no, I don't, because I don't want to ask a question that's about to be probably very obvious. So go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's 28:1.
Yeah. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 28 and verse 1. And take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother, and his sons with him, from among the children of Israel, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office, even Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, Aaron's sons. And thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron thy brother, for glory and for beauty. And thou shalt speak unto all that are wise-hearted, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I think I told you probably the wrong one. Sorry, 38. 38:1. My bad.
This is the book of Exodus, chapter 38 and verse 1?
Yes.
Okay. And he made the altar of burnt offerings of shittim wood. 5 cubits was the length thereof, and 5 cubits the breadth thereof. It was foursquare, and 3 cubits the height thereof. And he made the horns thereof on the 4 corners of it. The horns thereof were of the same, and he overlaid it with brass. And he made all the vessels of the altar, the pots, and the shovels, and the basins, and the flesh hooks, and the fire pans. All the vessels thereof made he of brass. And he made for the altar a brazen grate of network under the compass thereof, beneath onto the midst of it. And he cast 4 rings for the 4 ends of the grate of brass, to be places for the staves. And he made the staves of shittim wood, and overlaid them with brass. And he put the staves into the rings on the sides of the altar to bear it withal. He made the altar hollow with boards.
I'm sorry, my fault. I don't know. I guess I got to go back and dig it out and find it, but we can skip on. We don't have to double down on that point.
Well, really quick, I would like to bring up Dubster saying Marcus is calling me the devil. That's kind of in my head. I'm like, okay, red baby. Like I was actually, and if this is stupid, forgive me. Red baby. I was thinking like actually like typically a white baby. Like they're pink when they come out. That's okay. That was like my first thoughts. It's like, yeah, I can understand why you say this.
That's what I mean, I got. But also on top of that, if you go back to and that's why I say it's not every single person who is a white person. It is not. And for one, also, devil is not what you think it means. Devil literally just means a deceiver. So anybody can be a devil. Devil is just a deceiver. That's it.
Oh, Chris, that's all that you have to get on out of here. It won't hold you captive.
Oh, we understand. We understand, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, I gotta hit the road. Actually, I gotta go and take care of something. So
you're all good.
I'm gonna step out here. Fuzz, good to see you. Marcus, I'll talk to you, soon. Allie, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Good to have you here.
You already know, welcome on ours anytime.
Yes, love that. Yeah, sure. Love that.
Yeah, we'll have you on soon.
Right on.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, Chris. Bye, Chris.
And so that's what I said. You can't get caught up on. That's the reason why I teach. You don't get caught up on colorism. You try the spirit by the spirit. It says, "He that has an ear, let him hear." He who has eyes to see, let him see. Who has ears to hear, let him hear. So if this message is calling out to you, then it's a reason why this message is calling out to you.
So
don't get fixated. Yeah, just don't get fixated on the color scriptures and things.
No, and I'm not. And like I've honestly, I just don't understand what is so outrageous about that. Like actually, when you understand it, just as far as like history and how things have gone, I don't think that part necessarily is because you aren't even saying like, oh, it's literally all.
No, I'm not. I will say, damn near every white person in power. Yes, I am talking about you, because that's when it harkens back to what I read, what I had him read it first. Second Ezra 6 and 9, when it said Esau will be the end of the world. Who's in power, controlling most of the things around the world? Rich, powerful white men, right?
Yep.
And so that ties into letting you know kind of who Esau, whose nation it would be for the most part. Like I say, you can't go off of color because, for instance, you look at Blake Griffin's son. Blake Griffin's son, looks like a white kid. So if you go generation by generation by generation by generation, it's hard to know what you might be mixed up.
Right.
And so
the thing is,
go ahead.
It shouldn't be so simplified to just bring it out as, oh, Esau is the white man. No.
That's too simple.
So what needs to be done in order for that conclusion to come to be arrived at is have an understanding of people in the Bible, like especially very early on in Genesis. These are people that eventually become nations that can be traced out into the modern day.
Okay.
So if a certain nation ticks enough check marks of characteristics of that align with the biblical figure, then the majority of who that nation comprises of becomes the population.
Understood. Okay. Well, I think a lot of these things are very misunderstood in terms of how people hear them and then like what they walk away with. Just history. I don't know. That's very interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, all of these people, like for instance, the nation of Edom comes from Esau, and Edom means red. So when he went and took over his nation, Edom or Mount Seir, which Mount Seir actually means hairy because he was hairy, so that derives to that, and it's off the Red Sea. I mean, all of these things are for a reason that it's named that. Actually, I got another video I could show you. It's like real quick, where and big shout out to Sakari Hasak Karab, lays out a brilliant breakdown here.
This is a channel I found in my
it can now you gotta remember Sakari's a big camp. They're in a bunch of different CDs. So you have different teachers. Some
Yeah.
are going to be kind of abrasive. Some are going to be really abrasive.
Yeah.
Some are not going to be so much so. Some I've seen when they first started were really abrasive, and then over time they've refined their message and start thinking more. Because I've seen other people had to come out and say, "Well, wait a minute. Well, what if this and this and this?" Like, oh, well, yeah, you're right. I didn't mention that part. So you can't speak in as big as generalizations, as people often do.
Sakari is big enough and everywhere to the point where, how can I say this? Like brand new recruits that are new into the truth are not as much their concern because they're pretty well established. And
they do.
That's one of their responsibilities.
They do what I call Esau banging.
Yeah.
And so like they just spend the whole time out there and say, okay, well, since we figure most white people fall up under Esau, let's just attack every white person that walks by.
Yeah, so what's up? He's like, this stupid Eda, and I was laughing at the title.
That's what gets you the bad name when you're doing stuff like that, because that's, for one, that's not even accurate. But for two, according to what Fuzz brought out with Psalms 83, it shows you that it was more than one nation. It named more than just Edom, didn't it? And so you have to factor in, okay, well, who are some of these other people who had a part to play in some of these things that went on? But this I wanted to show because this ties a connection all the way. And so I guess I'll set this up because a lot of people aren't going to know who Haman the Agagite is. Haman is the grandson of Amalek. Amalek is the grandson of Esau. And so this is going to do a direct tie all the way from Esau all the way to Alexander the Great in the Bible.
Okay, go right ahead.
All right.
The Bible says we'll occupy the land of Israel right now. It's the book of Ezekiel, chapter 36, and verse 5. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession. Hey, this guy laughed at. Now notice, hey brother, what's your name? Corey. Now remember Corey. I want everybody to remember how Corey laughed at the notion that the so-called white man is an Edomite. 1 Samuel 15:8. You know how 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 8. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites. Who's Amalek? Oh yeah. Who's Amalek? Who's Corey? You don't know. That's not brother. Amalek is the grandson of who? Esau. I know. So if you're an Amalekite, that means you're Edomite, correct? Yes. Okay, so Agag, remember that. Agag, the king of Amalek. Go ahead. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. Adam, I'm trying to have a conversation with Corey. Now, I just want to establish a point, right? Now remember, it said Agag, the king of Amalek. You got Esther 3? Go ahead. Okay, 3:8. Hold on. Wait. Please wait. Go ahead. God. This is the book of Esther, chapter 3 and verse 1. So we can agree that Agag was the king of Amalek. He was an Edomite because Amalek is the grandson of Esau. Agag, Edomite. Go ahead. God. After these things, the king Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hamadatha, the Agagite. So Agag, so 1 Samuel 15:8, Agag was a descendant of Amalek, which are the Edomites. So now we have Aman, who is a descendant of Agag, which is a descendant of Amalek, which is a descendant of Esau. So this is an Edomite. Okay, now give me Esther, addition to Esther 16 and 10. Esther 16 and 10. Give me the addition to Esther 16 and 10. Okay, we'll see. Addition to Esther 16 and 10. And then give me 1 Maccabees 1 and 1. Okay, King James, right? 1611 King James is in it. Addition to Esther 16 and 10. So now we prove, hold on, Adam. Hold on. Now, we just proved that Agag, right, was an Amalekite. Agag is an Edomite. Now we have Aman, who's a descendant of Agag, which means Aman is an Edomite. Remember that. This is Esther 16 and 10. It's the book of Esther, chapter 16 and verse 10. For Amon, remember that. Amon, who's an Edomite, A Macedonian. A what? A Macedonian. What was Amen? A Macedonian. Okay, remember that. First Maccabees 1:1.
This is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. It happened after Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian.
What?
The Macedonian.
So if Agag was an Edomite, is a Macedonian, and Alexander's a Macedonian, what is Alexander's nationality, Adam? No, answer the question. Who Alexander the Greek? So he's a Greek. Are the Greeks white, Adam? Are they white? Yes or no? Yes or no? The Greeks white? Yes, they're white. So if Alexander, who's a Greek, who's white, is a Macedonian, and the Macedonians are Edomites, then the Greeks are Edomites, which means the white man's an Edomite. You don't know the Bible.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it right there. It's that clear that you can literally show these things in the Bible. But as you saw, that one guy, he was so combative that he didn't want to hear it. So that shows you more than likely. He's that other type of Edomite, the negative one. So, and somebody was saying, what was it, about the whole Jacob and not Jacob, but what was it? Ishmael.
Yes.
That how it is election must stand. So it doesn't matter that, oh, well, I think it should have went this way. God decides how it's going to go. It doesn't matter what we think. So it says, but go back to Isaac and Ishmael, who was the first who deserved the birthright. Yes, but God told him not to have a kid with trying to remember her name right now. He told him not to get her pregnant. And told him to cast. That's the reason why Ishmael had to be cast out. So Ishmael was cast out, so he was no longer his son. So the birthright goes in him. Yes, okay. If whole nations come from the same parents and children, then everyone is family. Yes, everyone is family, but this is how it works. There's literally an election. And so God has decided, I'm going to pick this one. That's just how it lays out. Yes, we're all still family. For instance, the children of like the Moabites and the Ammonites come from Lot. Lot is the cousin of Abraham. So yes, all cousins. Ishmael is where most Arabs come from, which is basically the distant brother of Isaac. I mean, so yes, we're all tied. Like I said before, when it goes back to the children of Seth, because after Cain killed Abel, Cain was cast out, and so it went on to Seth for it to go down Seth's line.